new Studio Secretz tutorial. It's a bit more of a tip this time, a little technique that I use in my tracks, and it's kind of born out of DJing and using CDJs. Now, one of the kind of things you used to do with CDJs is kind of create a loop on a track and then adjust the loop out to be able to kind of create a build-up effect. And what we're going to do is go and look at that in Ableton. Now, I've been using it a lot in my tracks recently and create some really interesting effects with it. So you can use it with a vocal, you can use it with a drum sample or a synth, and you can create these really great breakdown kind of effects, and you can build it back up using the same thing. And it's good to kind of bridge parts in tracks. So what I'll do is I'll show you a few examples of how you can use it within your track.
Right, okay, so let's get into this tutorial mode now then. So what I've got set up here is just a beat loop going here, just so we've got something to kind of go over the top. So it's just simple beats, just a simple loop that I pulled out of a loop library. Just so we got something to kind of work with. I've also then got a few channels here with simpler on, which we're going to be using in a second. And then I've also got some samples down here, just some one shots that I've picked out. We've got percussion sounds in here. And we've got some synth sounds, and I've got a vocal in here as well.
That's right!
And again, I'm not going to use them from this channel, but yeah, we're going to load them into the simpler and then start playing around with them a bit. So I'll just mute that from now. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at putting one of these samples into the simpler. So you can just drag and drop this from your sample library. I'm just going to drag and drop from this track just because I've got them all here. And if you use a simpler at all, it's a great, very, very simple sampler, and it's just built for just playing a single sample over a whole keyboard. So if I just hit the key, I can play it back as that. In fact, I'll just increase the volume a little bit. Yeah, so that's just playing the sample back quite just simply playing back at C3, I think that is. And what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the loop part of the simpler. Sorry. So what we do is we'd first hit the loop button here. Now, what this will do is it will make that sample loop for the whole time that you're pressing down the key. So if I hold down the C3 key, it's just going to keep looping and looping and looping it. And what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the length of the loop. So if I adjust this length, you'll see that the actual size of the sample just decreases. And while I'm holding it down, if I then automate this length, we can do some interesting stuff with it. So if I just hold it down and adjust the length, so as you can see, you can kind of create this kind of build-up kind of effect, very similar to the CDJ. It's almost the same kind of technique as you'd use for that. What I'll do is I'll put some reverb on this as well, just to kind of give it so it's not as dry. So as you can see there, we've kind of got this kind of really interesting effect happening. But how do we automate this? So when we're adjusting the length, you'll see that the automation channel is already moving. So what we can do is we can either do it one of two ways really. We can start from the loop length at its maximum and then automate it to to its minimum. So we'll start at 100% and then maybe move down to and we can see on here like it's automatically adjusting as you're going along. So we don't want to take it right down to 0, but we'll just take it down to here, say for example. And if I play this track back, you'll hear that it creates a nice little start effect at the start of the bar. Of course, it doesn't actually. We need to create a MIDI note. So let me just create a little MIDI track in there first, because that's not going to play anything back. So I'll create a little MIDI clip in here. Double click on that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do one held note on C3. So I'll just put that in there. I'm pressing the B shortcut on the keyboard just to select to put it into note edit mode, and then I can just put a long note on C3 there. So let's play that back from the start. Okay, that kind of went a bit too fast. So what we're going to do is I'm going to extend that out a bit. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and that will give me a curved line on my automation. It's one of the best things that they put in Ableton 9, because you can create a different kind of sloped loop, or sorry, automation curve. So I'm just going to hold down Alt and then just kind of drag the line down to create this kind of swoop. And what I want to do is I want it to first off, the speed of the automation to be quick and then slow down over time. So we'll play that back again. So there you go. We're kind of creating a kind of the effect we're looking for here. So and what I can do is I'll just turn down the volume of that a bit, but I can then make this fade back up again to the top. So again, I'll do the automation there, and we'll see it. It gradually goes from a full loop, and it gradually decreases, and then goes back up again. So there you go. We've got this really dynamic kind of percussion sound happening, here that we can loop over, we can change, we can do different things with it. So you could, this could be, going through your track. It could be an interesting effect going on. So again, that's the kind of just one of the first uses that you can use for it. Now, notice I didn't go all the way to 0%, so I didn't take the loop length to its extreme. And what happens is when the shorter the loop gets, the more digitized the kind of sound happens. And this is kind of very familiar of the Swedish House Mafia effect in their track 1. So what happened with that is it's a drum sample that gets, the loop gradually gets decreased and decreased until it becomes this kind of, this just noise kind of sample. So if I decrease this all the way to 0, which kind of creates, so it's almost, so there's no length at all. You'll hear that it just gets really digitized and grainy about there. Which obviously creates a kind of interesting effect, but if you're using a percussion sample, you don't want it to sound digital, you want it to sound organic. So that's why I'm not taking it all the way to 0%. So so this should work quite nicely. So even then, it's kind of getting a bit digitized, getting a bit kind of grainy. So I'll just take that down again. So as I say, you can play around with these settings all you want, and it can kind of create some really interesting effects. It's great for kind of bridging gaps. Certainly, like at the end of a bar or something. So say for example, we'll get rid of these, and what I'll do is I'll create another version of this loop. And what we'll do is we'll take the bottom end out. So let's put an EQ in that, and then just take the bottom end of this loop out. So we got we've got one version of the loop up here, which is with all the bass in it, and then we've got one down the bottom here, which is kind of got the low end cut. So if I play this back, you'll see this kind of creates almost like a fill effect. So there we go. We're kind of creating this kind of nice kind of fill effect at the end of a bar, which kind of works quite nicely. And it doesn't have to go down and then up. It can start from the bottom and then gradually it can just say for example it can start at the smallest part of the loop and then it kind of expand out, or it can start at the full length and then it just contract. So you can do it whichever way you want. You just play around with it. So we'll try with that, how that sounds. Maybe that's a bit long. Maybe we wouldn't have quite a fill that long. So we'll do that. That's not quite playing. That's why the note has not been moved. There we go. So there you go. It's just a really simple effect. It's just one percussion sound on there, you know, with a bit of reverb on it, and you're just adjusting the loop length. And as I say, that creates a nice little kind of fill going on there. So that's just one of the uses of the loop tool. So what I'll do is I'll show you some uses with, say for example, with a synth, and you can do exactly the same kind of thing with with a synth patch. I'll just drop one of these on here, and again, if I play it back at C3. So there you go. We got just a random synth shot picked out there. Again, I'll enable loop, and then if I hold down the key, so there you go. We kind of got this, yeah, the same kind of deal going on with the percussion, but we're using a synth sound now. So you know, we could probably go a bit more digitized. We could take it right down to its extreme of the loop length. So again, I'm going to put another. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put a hold note over the whole of this. So we'll just add a new MIDI clip. Again, switch to my note edit with B. Take it out of that, and then extend the note all the way across. That's just going to play the one note all the way across. And if I turn the loop off, all it would do is it would just play it once, and that's it. But if I put the loop on, then obviously it would just keep looping it. And obviously, you know how it loops it. It will just loop it for the sample length. So it might not be looping it in time to your beat, because the sample lengths probably not in time with your track. So if you just adjust the length, then you can start playing around with how this kind of works within the track. Oh, that's a bit too much. Again, we use some curves here just to kind of give it a bit nicer of an effect. So there you go, we just play around with all these curves and stuff. And as I say, I'm only just doing this rough, just to kind of show you some effects that we can do. So that synth there is now actually, it's just dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of reverb on it. In fact, I'm going to put quite a bit of reverb on it, and I'm going to increase the decay time because we want it to kind of fill across a bit more. And I'm going to take away the bottom end of it as well because it's a bit muddy down the bottom there. So we probably don't want to take the loop length down that far because it sounds better actually with its with only a short loop length. It might just be because of the sample we're using, but it sounds better like that, doesn't it? So again, it's creating this kind of texture that's going on there, this constantly moving kind of texture. And, you know, to kind of give it a bit more kind of maybe width or something, because using a synth, you kind of maybe want to throw it out to the sides. You could even put an auto pan on as well. And as I said before, like because it depends on the sample length, you know, whether it's in time, whether that loops in time with your track. But what you can do to kind of almost fake that, you can use auto pan. And if you switch it over to the quantized option, then you can get it to throw it from left to right in time with the beat. So I'll put it as a 1/4, and I'll increase the amount. And what you'll see here is as it's playing back on the meters here, it will be throwing it from left to right, left to right, left to right. So as you see, with creating the auto pan there, it kind of pans it in time to the beat, so you kind of almost faking the fact that it's not looping in time, but it kind of gives, it kind of makes it fit in with the track a bit better. Again, what you could do is then you could even do side chaining on this if you wanted to. That would kind of probably bring it in line with the track. So what I'll do is I'll put an LFO tool on there. Again, as I say, every tutorial I seem to use, it's got this plugin, and it's brilliant. Saves you all the mess of having to use compressors to do your side chains. This kind of handles it all. Even the presets are great. I tend to go straight for the sidechain presets, and I'll go for sidechain 6 because that seems to be my preference. And what this doing, if you haven't seen any of my tutorials before, or if you've not used the LFO tool before, what this basically does is it kind of ducks. So this is a kind of volume envelope of the beat, and this kind of black space here is almost where the kick drum would be. So it's going from about probably about 10% volume up to 100% volume as that kind of beat hits. So it kind of ducks the kick. And again, this is it's just so quickly just to set it up, and it'll help kind of merge that kind of sound into your track. So again, that works quite nicely, and you can go two ways with this really. I mean, you've got the reverb there, and what you could do is you could it's set at a kind of a modest kind of 27% there. It's not it's not adding too much wet at the moment, and you've got quite a bit of decay time there. But what you could do is you could take all this down to take the decay right down and not put as much in, so you've got more of a kind of dry signal coming through. And as I say, it's very percussive. It's kind of it kind of hits you quite nicely. But then again, you can go the other way with it, and you can almost create a pad sound out of it. And this is the kind of thing what I usually do. If you want to create this kind of pad sound that kind of drives the track forward, what you can do is you can just increase the decay time to, I don't know, something stupid like about 7 seconds or something like that. Just so it's a really long decay time, and then whack the dry wet up. So you're just using the wet signal. And what it does is it kind of takes that percussion kind of sound, that kind of hit away from it, and it just creates this kind of pad sound instead. Now, because you're using the auto pan and the LFO tool, that will kind of give it a rhythmic kind of quality to it, but it creates this kind of evolving pad kind of sound. So this is how it sounds. So again, this is almost like a kind of siren-y kind of sound going on in the background. And again, what I can do is, because we've got this kind of pad going on, I can decrease the loop size so it really kind of gets really tight, and that'll adjust the kind of sound that comes out of this. So I'll take these right down. So you're creating some really interesting kind of stuff going on here. But one of the other things you can do, I mean, we're only automating the loop length here, but we could also automate the pitch of the sample as well. And this, again, this is really good for creating risers and stuff that are constantly rising throughout your track. So what I do is I click on the transpose here, and that will bring up the automation line on here. And what I can do is I can start at at 0, which is what the sample is playing back at its its normal kind of pitch. And then I can, increase it as the track goes on. So I could transpose it up, 12 maybe, so up a whole scale, and I can just do that. So it does that over the whole track. And in fact, I get it so it goes back down to 0 at the end of the bar. See how that goes. So let's see, play it back. So again, we're creating this big room kind of sound. I mean, I could take the reverb back down again, and we can hear how that sounds without all that reverb in it. So there you go. I mean, that's just that's another use for it, using synths with it, creating some nice, interesting textures with it. And the final use what I'll show is using vocal samples with it. So this is a good way of kind of if you've got a simple one shot, it doesn't sound like much on its own. But what you can do is you can kind of play around with bits of the sample to I don't know, just kind of almost just give it a bit of variation, so it's not as clean as the sample straight out of your loop library. So playing around with this one here, we've got this sample here. That's right. So it's just 2 words. That's right. What we could do is we could just take the first word, that's, and just kind of use a simpler on it, so we can kind of almost kind of roll it, turn it into kind of this fill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this vocal sample up. So that in fact, I'll get rid of all these other samples because we don't need these. And what I'm going to do is at the end of the bar, I want it to roll into that's right. So I've got that and right split up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the right on the channel here, but we want to have the that's part being played through this simpler. So I'm just going to drag that into there. And what I can do is I can mute that track, so I can deactivate that, I think. Yeah, deactivate it, so I don't need that at the moment. So at the moment, it's just playing right at the end here. Right! So again, I'm going to put another MIDI clip in here so we can play the that's part back. Again, it's on C3. It just defaults to C3, and that's what it's playing back at its pitch. And again, if you want to, obviously, if you're using a pitched kind of sound like a synth sample, then you might want to, pitch your sample in here first, and then move around from there, because obviously the synth sample that comes in might not be a C, it might be a D, it might be E, whatever. So you might need to pitch that around first, so you make sure it's in the right key for your track. But we're not playing around with that today. I'm just showing you the technique and and how you can use it. So so there we go. So in fact, let me decrease that. So what we got going on here is we've just got that that sample playing back. So I'll solo that for a second. So it's just playing that. Again, I'm going to loop it up, and So there we go. So it's actually I want that playing. Actually, I am not going to deactivate that. I'm going to activate it again. And what we want it to do is we want it kind of go from a really tight loop right down to a loose loop, kind of just expanding and then playing the sample as it should be. In fact, let me drag that out. So let's play that back. So we want to decrease the loop length. So again, I'm going to click on the length, and then that will bring up the automation, and I'll go from a really tight loop, say here, and then right down to the full loop there. So let's see how that sounds. In fact, sorry, that bit as well, so we can hear that.
That's right.
Right, I need to decrease the volume of this.
That's right. That's right.
So we're almost there. It's just kind of, it's a little bit off at the end here, so I might just adjust the loop length.
That's right. That's right.
There we go. That sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it back with the rest of the track now. So we kind of got that. That's sounding pretty good. And what we're going to do is we could put the different different effects or the same effects on both of these channels. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group these together so I can process them the same. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put well, first I'll EQ it, make sure I get the bottom of the end of it out a bit, and a bit of reverb on there as well, I think. So there you go, and now we can also then adjust the vocal sample altogether, so we can just take that right down, because we've got these both matched now, so they're about the same levels. We can now take that down. So there we go, that's kind of like 3 uses of how to use the kind of simpler tool and that kind of looping function within it. So you got you can use it with a percussion sound, a kind of drum sound there, and kind of create this kind of texture going on, almost like a fill. You can use it with a synth shot, so you can create either a kind of interesting, again, kind of percussive kind of sound going on, constantly moving kind of sound. Or you can you put full reverb on it and turn it into a pad, almost like a riser, by adjusting the the pitch and the transpose. Or you can just take a vocal sample and start messing around with it a bit and seeing what you can do with it. But it's all up to just experimenting with it. You can either be going from a full loop length and decreasing it, or going from the smallest loop length and just increasing it, just to kind of just create all these different kind of effects. And it's great for bringing a track to life, because you can either use it as a bridge, so like we have with the percussive sound, we use it as a fill, so percussive kind of bridge at the end of a end of a bar or end of a piece. Or we can use it as something that constantly goes throughout the track, that kind of gives the track some movement. So hopefully that's given you guys kind of a little technique that you can use within your track to kind of just give it some effects, some interest, and create some kind of cool effects.